everyone. Ryan Lombardi here, Vice President for Student and Campus Life at Cornell. Really pleased to be with you today for Real Talk, episode number 2. Very excited about today's guest, someone who I think has probably garnered more followers and interest at Cornell than myself and many others. Daniel James II, who is the founder of the podcast Black Voices on the Hill, a podcast that's been going on, I think, about a year now, and we'll hear a little bit more from Daniel about this experience, but really delighted to have Daniel with us today. He's joining us from his internship this summer at the United States House of Representatives, so appreciate him stepping away.
Thank you so much for having me today. This is a great honor. I told you before I got here, I was a little bit nervous. This is VP Lombardi. I absolutely am so grateful for this opportunity just to share the same stage with you. So I appreciate it.
Daniel, I said just a little bit about you, but will you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and what you're involved with here at Cornell? And then we'll get into your podcast a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with just Cornell and then go to my home. So at Cornell, of course, as you know, I'm the host and creator of a podcast and radio show called Black Voices on the Hill there at Cornell. It is the pride and joy, I think, of what I've done. It's weird to have found that, and I'm getting ready to leave now. It really sort of, it's a bummer because I think I'm just really getting into that point where it's something that I'm really passionate about, is amplifying Black voices. But through my time at Cornell, I've done a lot of work with diversity and inclusion since my freshman year. I've been on ILR SGA. And this past year, I had the opportunity to serve as president of ILR SGA. I've also been in Malarso, so almost all the clubs I do, I try to keep it ILR based. Malarso, I do, it's called Minorities for ILR Students. Org also does a lot of diversity inclusion work, pre-professional work for people of color. And then I'm also a Cornell mentor for incarcerated youth, now called, it was CMIY, now it's called Students for Students. They go to a local carceral facility right outside of Ithaca, weekly course pre-COVID now. But those are 3 things I'm really just passionate about: diversity inclusion and criminal justice work. As he said, his other half, Dean Lombardi in the ILR. So she's one of my favorite people. Shout out to Dean Lombardi. So I really love her. Yeah, but a little bit about me. So I was, as you said, born in Marion, South Carolina. Very small. It's been called a flyover town, flyover zone. It probably has about 6,000 people. And I would describe it as a Black working class town. It is the epitome of the South in terms of culture, in terms of food, but also with its own issues, right? It was located along what's known as the I-95 corridor of shame at one point, known for, having problems when it came to educational infrastructure, jobs, and was really hit hard by the recession. But today I can proudly say that we're going through a lot of revitalization, intense economic development and things like that. So we're bringing the businesses back, we're bringing jobs back, bringing education back, and bringing back pride to my hometown. So I'm really excited about that. I was in public school most of my life. I love public school education, and it was really critical to forming me into the person I am today. And then when I was about in 9th grade, I got this really great opportunity, a full scholarship to boarding school in Massachusetts. That was a life-changing experience. I think just coming from a divorced single mother background to that type of education, being surrounded in a space where I was, for the first time, really a minority. That was somewhat difficult, but it also made me more hyper aware of the issues that exist in my own community. I think separating myself also made me more aware of how much of an asset I needed to be when I went back home. So I went there for 3 years, graduated from there. And I became really passionate about issues regarding, this is how the ILR sells themselves, you guys. On the website, if you're interested in social justice, civil rights, the legal field, etc., apply to ILR. I was like, well, that's the one I'm applying to.
Sold, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And so that's how I really ended up at the ILR school.
When I introduced you, I said you're doing a internship this summer with the House of Representatives, and didn't know if you wanted to share any more about that. I assume the interest in the law and civil rights maybe is what led you to this path, but anything you want to share about your current experience or what you hope to gain this summer?
People have done like congressional internships, but I wanted to work for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation that really helps get like African American and Black staffers into Congress because they've been underrepresented. So I applied for the internship, got it. Unfortunately, due to COVID, they weren't able to place us during the spring semester. And so it became more of it was still a policy internship. I wrote policy briefs about different current legislation in the House. I, learned how to network with legislators and people that were on the Hill. So I did get that, but I didn't get placed and to work for one congressperson and develop that intimate relationship, learn how the office works, and really work on policy issues related to my home state. I didn't get to work for my congressman. And so that sort of led me to like, well, I'm going to use this as a leverage point to finally get in DC because I never really worked in DC, lived in DC, and I want to get the on the ground experience. I'm going to get vaccinated. If there's someone that's not vaccinated, please do if you can. So I got vaccinated and I came to DC and I applied to work in Congressman Clapper's office. Now, the funny part is this is about my podcast.
Yeah.
What happened was I sort of just called the Columbia District office where I live. It's literally like probably 10 minutes from where I live. And I just called them and said, I would love to have him on the podcast. He sort of said, sure, we'll get back to you. And so a couple weeks go by and it didn't happen. I said, okay, I'll call again, try to be persistent. You got to be persistent. Yeah. So I ended up emailing his communications director and, they said, well, put it on the books, push it to him. So I didn't hear, this was probably VP Lombardi, this is probably February. And so then I get like a call in March, all of a sudden, like one day, and they're like, we have 30 minutes tomorrow. And mind you, I have a whole internship. I have to work. So I told them who I was, talking to though. And they were like, oh, go ahead, take care of that. So it was very good. And I ended up talking to him and we talked about just everything. We can get to later maybe, but like policing, I talked about voting rights. So that's how I ended up interviewing him, and then working for him was sort of separate. I just sent in my cover letter and resume, and when they saw my CBCF experience, that's sort of how I ended up here.
Well, I hope all Cornellians who end up watching this interview are taking notes right now about persistence and how to get this done. And Daniel, it sounds like your outreach to Congressman Clyburn and just your persistence and sticking with it, the connection with your podcast and leading to an internship. I mean, couldn't state it better. So I hope everyone takes some notes right here because you're doing it right. So let's talk about this podcast. It's amassed, I think, a really meaningful following on campus. I know, like you said, your pride and joy. So to take us back a little bit though, and I've learned a little bit about this, but tell everybody how and why you started this podcast. And I think, am I right that it's been about a year now?
It has. It's been about 8 months. It'll be a year in September.
Okay.
September 8th we launched. But if I be honest, the podcast was birthed in July because that's really when the talks started. So, man, it's crazy to think that it's been almost a year, like you said, because last year I had no thoughts of that I would get the opportunity to do this or that it would actually be something I would do. And so a lot of the skills, I would like to shout out my mom, because a lot of the skills that I learned that I use now in terms of interviewing and producing and radio and knowing how to, conduct an interview, how to ingratiate people to my platform. Like it was media, of course, social media design, graphics. Yeah. Like I learned all of that, a lot of it from her. And it was really in response. I wanted the show to have a twofold message. So when I open up the show, I always say Black Voice on the Hill is a podcast, a radio show. We center Black lives, amplify Black stories, answer Black experience. We talk about racism, police brutality, sexism, white elitism in the Ivy League. I wanted us to address the imminent threat of police brutality, state violence against Black and brown bodies. I thought that was very an opportune time. It was the end of June, and it was the same month as the funeral of George Floyd, and it was in the aftermath of the killings of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And so I didn't just want a place where we can sort of zoom in on Black trauma, right? I wanted a way to be productive about our conversations about what can we do to move forward, but then also like highlighting the amazing Black talent that is on our campus. And I'm sure you know this. Right? Like there is some amazing students, some amazing Black students on our campus that we've got TikTok stars. We have, people that have created investment funds that have ended up in NBC beside VP Harris, Kamala Harris. We've got, just so many new second Black woman to be a undergraduate student elect trustee. We just have so many people doing so. And then, students that have created other things on campus like Cornell in Color, my friend Latoya, just so many things like that for undergraduate students. And so, not to mention Sherelle. Oh man, Sherelle. Oh, absolutely. In terms of just the Cornell Students for Black Lives. And so I wanted a way to highlight Black excellence.
It's been a journey though, right? I mean, you had an idea, it came to life, and then it's grown and it's evolved over the year, right? So that's amazing. And I'm sure, I hope, this maybe would have been a question better for the end, but I hope your plan is to continue it as we get into your senior year next year and keep this going.
Absolutely.
Good. So how do you just mentioned a couple of things that a lot of things that resonated with me, but I want to focus on a couple. You talked about all of the excellent things happening at Cornell from our students. And I'm with you 100%. I get to feel and see and hear and experience those myself. And I know that you've often interviewed Cornell students, but not always. We talked about Congressman Clyburn before. How do you make those choices about who you're going to interview or what topic you might want to discuss? Or is it really, I pick a subject and then we just let the interview unfold depending on what goes? How do you go through that process, Daniel?
I have a huge backlog, and I probably owe a lot of people a lot of favors in terms of, you gotta interview this person, you gotta interview this person. Typically, the way I engage with my audience is through my Instagram story. So I'll just post a little, I don't know if you used that feature before on the Instagram story, but you sort of just poll and question and who would y'all like to see next, something like that.
Okay.
I usually put some southern y'alls and alls and everything. And
you got to be true to South Carolina, right?
Absolutely, at all times. And so they light it up, they light up the story, and I post each person and bet. And so if you look at it, like you can go, I say the stories, you can see like I usually try to stay faithful to who I'm saying going to have. Now, when I first started the show, I just created a list of 10 people. I was like maybe 6 episodes ahead. And so I already had people that I wanted to. And if you look at them, I don't want, it's not nepotism, but most of them were like my friends and people I knew at first, because that's how I started out.
Just fair. You're allowed to do that as a student. That's fair.
And now I get to do people that I know nothing about. Or our first time meeting is when they log on to the Zoom, like today is my first time meeting you and we're having a whole conversation. It's just like this. I'm trying to, pick some personal favorite people as well. So I've had my mom on my podcast as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that. She sounds amazing, and what an influence she's been on you too, right?
Absolutely. I had her during Women's History Month, and then I don't know. I'm just trying to expand the. I always want to keep it Cornell based, so that's always important. But I also, people have asked for guests that are maybe a little bit larger profile, and you said we're got a good following. We don't have that yet. We're not verified yet. So, but I'm hoping that eventually we'll be able to bring people that are a lot more, very notable, but necessarily not. That's why I say Cornell, Ithaca, and beyond, because I think there are a lot of people that can add something to our conversation. But if I can go ahead and drop who I'd like to have next, I'd like to have some more Cornell alum, like Kimberly Crenshaw, Nate Jemison. You think you can make that happen?
Ooh, I might be able to help. I've got some connections. I'll do anything I can.
Okay.
I've heard these names before for some other invites that I won't disclose, but I do know that we've got a few connections there that might help. It's interesting. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have. This is only episode 2 of Real Talk with Ryan, although just a conversation. Has there been, as you've gone through and you've done all these interviews this year, has there been a takeaway in terms of, I want to get to content in a minute, but a takeaway in terms of style, like how you get people to be comfortable and be truly authentic with you in that space? Is there any strategy that you use as a interviewer that you found successful in helping people feel comfortable, really bringing their voice to the air?
That's a great question. I try to laugh as much as I can personally. Find things. I've also it's not like in an interview like this, for example, I know that typically, like we did before this, I would always just stop a few minutes, ask them like, how are you doing? Where are you at mentally? Especially with a lot of things that have been going on this like recently, just like a mental health check-in, like, how are you? That always it brings them right into the conversation, because sometimes when you're scatterbrained, being interviewed, even as much as it is an honor, people take it as an honor, like they're not there. And so it just brings them in, and like, I care about who you are as a person more than I do about producing content. Or you're just using your name, etc. And then also I spice it up. I mean, of course, I've had musical guests. So every musical guest I've had, whether it's Juan the Don, who's a rapper on campus, I make him, can you freestyle real quick? And it always puts me on the spot. Granted, if somebody put me on the spot like that, I would hate it, absolutely hate it. So it's not quite fair. Recently, coming up, I interviewed Colin Hancock, who Colin is a Alpha Phi Alpha, is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity Incorporated alumnus, but he also was nominated for a Grammy this year. And so for his notes he did on the album, and I had him play his trumpet or cornet on the podcast, which is very interesting. And then I've also I'll do a heads up, like I've done heads up with my phone, where you sort of
the game heads up. Yep. Okay.
And so that's always fun, just to spice it up. Also trivia. If I know it's a sports person, I might do a couple questions that are trivia, things like that, to diversify the interview style, and not just going back and forth. Even though we center Black lives, it truly is for everyone. Anyone can listen to my podcast and find something, to grab from it. And I wanted to also not only be a plug for, people to listen to the podcast, but the podcast is being a launching board of supporting these people in everyday life, and just creating a very inclusive culture, not the sake of, getting on a mic and recording an episode just for it, but these people have businesses, they have services, whether it's hair braiders, whether it's, whether it's, music that people put out. These people are leaders on campus. They're student leaders in athletics. They investment fund, like I said, they work in business on campus, etc. And just knowing that these are places of support, and also places that you can go to support people in real life. And one of the most profound statements that has been made on my show was by Mariah, and who serves on SA, and she said, it's important not only to share Black squares on your Instagram story, but also to support Black people in real life. And so that's also part of it. I think Ithaca business owners, that are Black, supporting those businesses as well. So I want people to know, it's truly for everyone. What was the thought behind the talks with Ryan? Because a lot of vice presidents of great colleges like Cornell don't have this. So what's the purpose? And what do you see in the future for this?
Thanks for asking me that. I'm really excited about this for a couple of reasons. I mean, students who know me and that I've gotten a chance to build a relationship with during their time here know that I invest and enjoy my job the most when I'm connected to students, and I'm able to really still be in the one-on-one kind of support, or just getting to know people as humans and what their stories, their lived experiences. And this is why I got into this field, right? I studied education. All 3 of my degrees are in education. I wanted to be a teacher. I'm doing college administration, but I see it as being an educator, not as a bureaucrat, not as an administrator, but really an educator. And I see my role here to try to help amplify the voices of all of our students and of young lives, and help students be their best selves while they're at college, and help navigate the challenges of college, and hopefully grow and transform. And so, but we're a big campus, and I've worked at other big universities, and while it's great for the students that I have that ability to connect with, I can't connect with all 15,000 undergraduates. And then, if you add our graduate and professional students, we're up at 24,000. So I really wanted people to get a little bit more of a sense of me and of our students. So that's why I'm talking to students in this, to get a sense of what's going on at Cornell, my take on things, our students' takes on things, and just be able to have a space for the two of us, whichever student I'm interviewing, to be authentic with each other and open with each other, and talk about the things that are really salient to Cornell and to Cornell students. And this is only episode 2, so we'll see where it goes, but some good feedback on the first one. And I think people will be really excited to meet you and get to hear your story a little bit here. So we do plan to keep it up. I think we're going to do a couple episodes this summer, and then we plan to keep it up next year. So hopefully it'll have that effect of creating more community and connection on campus, which I think is really important.
How do you plan and foresee to help make, I guess, campus more inclusive, and also like more welcoming to students who also like are having issues, mental health wise and things like that?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think that a couple of things I would want to say about this. This is, I think, our most important work, and our most important call to action is how we continue to support students on this campus, not only because of the last year, 15 months, which, like you said, global upheaval, national upheaval, a lot of challenges here at Cornell, a lot of mental health concerns. This pandemic has disproportionately impacted people of color. It's disproportionately impacted lower income individuals, service workers, people who really are often already at a disadvantage in the systems that dominate the US. And so I think for a lot of people, the pandemic amplified their awareness of those disparities. Not for everybody, but I hope for people who maybe didn't see those before. And for of course, me and a lot of my colleagues who are close to students were keenly aware of this and have been pre-pandemic and really trying to focus on this. So, and I want to just pause as I get into a few more details, and thank you for acknowledging the challenges on our campus this year too, and how hard it was. This, I think, was a very difficult year for a lot of our students, for a lot of our faculty, and a lot of our staff. One of the things that we're looking at right now, in fact, I was just talking with one of my colleagues, which is why I was a few minutes late to this interview, was about even creating some new positions this fall that are really going to focus on Black student empowerment, Latinx student empowerment, really thinking about how we better support and create that sense of belonging for students that come to campus, and make sure that they can find community and find connection and find the sense of place on this campus, because I think that'll go an awful long way. I will say that we're also actively recruiting some of our new therapy staff this summer, which we're really excited about that process, to get more therapists on board and replace some of those folks that have left us. We're also exploring some continual virtual therapy options that we hope to have in place. We of course had to be all virtual during the pandemic, and a lot of that will be back in person, but we've heard from a lot of students that they really appreciated the virtual option. So how do we actually expand further so we can do both in person and virtual, and again, create even greater access to the clinical support? Again, that's kind of the downstream, but it's still really, really critical that we continue to invest in that too. So a number of initiatives that we're thinking about quite a bit as we enter the new year. And I think I would encourage everyone to follow along. We'll be sending out some updates as we open the school year, but especially around the changes that will come as a result of the review. These are systemic changes around academic policies, around those types of things too, that I know create a lot of stress and a lot of strain for our students. So I'm cautiously optimistic about some of the changes ahead, but we're really focused on this.
So awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for asking about it. I appreciate it. And I appreciate, and maybe at some point we can visit again once a few of these things are are in place and rolling out so that we can help make sure that people are aware of them too. That's, as you know, one of the challenges on our campus is we have a lot of resources, but if sometimes you don't always know about them, and right, sometimes it's got to be word of mouth or mentorship or community, but we also need to continue to strengthen the ways that we communicate about these resources with our students so that students really know where they have a place to turn and a place to go.
Awesome. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
You said this is your senior year. I am keeping an eye on time, so we don't have a lot of it left, but it's your senior year next year. Are there a couple things that are high on your bucket list, Daniel, as you go into your senior year next year that you want to make sure? I gave you a hard time about, look, you've got a quarter of your college experience left. Anything you want to make sure that you get done next year or that you experience at Cornell next year?
Well, one thing I am going to get to do next year, as long as June 15th checks out, I'll get to study abroad next year. Through ILR, again, you see, this is what ILR is awesome in terms of experiences. And I was supposed to go abroad last fall and it was canceled, and that was really a letdown. And so I told, Bridget at the time, I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm done. I don't want to do it. And then at the last minute, Hennessy Pineda, shout out to Hennessy, she's in ILR as well. She sort of reached out to me and she was like, Daniel, you're going to get this opportunity again, this one. So I probably 2 days before the deadline, I applied.
Put it in.
And so thankfully, fingers crossed, we'll hopefully get to go. That's one thing. And then the other thing is just, I don't know, doing things on campus I haven't done yet. I haven't done a lot of things that relate to the water, anything in Ithaca. I heard the waters, the Cayuga waters are very cold, and that's
they are. You have to do those in the summer if you're going to do them, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe one of those things we can put on our bucket list is the Lombardi couple can go to lunch with Daniel. How's that? We can grab lunch, the three of us together.
I would love that.
Would you be up for that?
I would third wheel all day. Absolutely.
All right, that would be fun. I would enjoy that quite a bit. I'm sure Carol would as well. And great advice from Hennessy, by the way. I'm not one that thinks about regrets very often, but the one thing I really wish I would have done as an undergraduate was study abroad. It's just, I didn't have that opportunity. My curriculum, I was a music major in college, I wanted to be a music teacher. There wasn't that flexibility and I didn't do it. And life moves really quickly. Let's just say that. So I'm really glad that you got that advice and that you threw yourself into that. So we are running out of time. So I need to wrap us up here, but I need to let you get back to your internship and all that kind of stuff. But Daniel, I want to just thank you very much again, not only for your time today, which I really enjoyed, and it was nice getting to meet you and hearing a little bit about your story and your passion, your mother, things that are important to you. I think more importantly, for the efforts you've put in over these past months and now almost a year to, like you said, to center Black voices, to amplify Black voices, and to celebrate Black excellence at Cornell. I wish more people would tune in, and I wish more people could experience being a part of this community and seeing that community and seeing that excellence, because it really is special. And it's really terrific. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to just let you know that it's appreciated. And I really want to honor that. So thank you very much, Daniel. And I want to just thank everybody who was watching this episode of Real Talk with Ryan, episode 2. Stay tuned. There will be more coming. Look forward to doing that. It'll be tough. I thought it was going to be tough to top the time with Aaron and the Big Run Bun account early on. Now it's going to be even more difficult to top the time I spent with Daniel today and the founder of Black Voices on the Hill. But again, everybody, Daniel James II, make sure to check out the podcast, tune in, WBBR, and listen to this great resource. Daniel, thanks so much and have a great day.